Breaking news coming out in the past couple of hours as we have heard that things have erupted in the Middle East. We are hearing that the United States is preparing for potential conflict, even war with Iran. Warnings are being issued back and forth. And in the past couple of hours as well, we've heard that Israel has broken the ceasefire with Gaza. Attacks are taking place as we're hearing the hostages are not being released. A deal has fallen apart. And also there is conflict all throughout the Middle East. We're hearing Iraq, Syria, Iran, all over Yemen, and the United States is saying the Houthi rebel attacks that have been taking place in the Red Sea. Well, now the United States is striking back and saying the Houthi rebels are funded by Iran, and they will be holding Iran directly accountable for this. And like I said, we're expecting things to escalate. Now, let me share with you the latest headlines that have been coming out in the past couple of hours so that way you can see them for yourself today, March 17th, 2025. Take a look. Let me pull this up here 1 second. Trump sights set on Iran after U.S. airstrikes decimate more than 30 Houthi targets. So Trump is focused on Iran. Trump warns Iran will be held responsible for Houthi attacks from Yemen. So Trump says Iran will be held directly responsible. The U.S. president has threatened Iran while the Pentagon vows overwhelming lethal force against the Houthis in Yemen. Iran now threatens back the United States with devastating response. You can see this coming out today. Trump says Iran will suffer dire consequences for any more Houthi attacks. The Houthi responded by claiming a third attack in 48 hours, and ceasefires as well over as Israel strikes Gaza after Hamas refused to release hostages, officials have said. So like I said, a lot unfolding here in the past couple of hours. Today, March 17th, 2025, we are hearing things are erupting in the Middle East. I'm going to play for you the latest video footage so that way you can see it for yourself as we are hearing things are just erupting in the Middle East. And let me know your thoughts. Are we about to enter into war with Iran? United States and Iran going back and forth, as you saw in the headlines, threatening one another, and we're hearing things are escalating significantly. If you think that we're about to enter into war, put yes. If you think no, put no. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm going to dive into the articles and the video footage so you can see it for yourself, as Donald Trump is saying he holds Iran directly responsible for these proxy groups that are attacking the U.S. and Israel. Do you agree with Donald Trump? Let me know your thoughts on this. And a lot of people saying, we've been hearing this for quite some time, that these various rebel groups, they are simply proxy groups funded by Iran, and going towards Iran, they're saying, is going for the head of the snake. So we're hearing things are significantly escalating, and Donald Trump getting very aggressive with Iran as well, saying that they cannot be allowed to have nuclear weapons. They are trying to get closer and closer to a nuclear bomb. We've been hearing for quite some time, trying to enrich uranium to the point where they're able to get these bombs. We've heard that they've gotten to 60%. They need to get to 90% to have a nuclear bomb capability. And they're saying that is far more than is necessary just simply to have nuclear power or energy. So right now we're hearing that is the direction they are going. But let me go ahead and play for you the latest video footage as we're hearing things have erupted in the past couple of hours as Israel is attacking Gaza. We're hearing that Donald Trump has his eyes set on Iran, and we're hearing threats are going back and forth. Hit that like button if you appreciate the updates. Subscribe to stay up to date. It's totally free. I cite all the sources. They're going to be linked in the description. I put them on the screen. Read right from it so you can see that it is the latest. And I'm also going to be playing for you the latest video footage so that way you can see it for yourself, coming out today, March 17th, 2025. So let's go ahead and get right to it. Let's start off with some video footage so that way you can see it for yourself.
Meantime, the administration launched an opening salvo to what we're told could be a weeks-long campaign against the Houthis in Yemen. After they resumed Red Sea shipping attacks, the president had a very firm message for Iran. Listen.
There's no way the Houthis, the Houthis would have the ability to do this kind of thing unless they had support from Iran. And so this was a message to Iran. Don't keep supporting them, because then you will also be responsible for what they are doing in attacking Navy ships, in attacking global shipping.
Now, the Ayatollah rejected the president's offer for talks over their nuclear program, but the White House is still pushing to resume that conversation as Israel continues to push for a joint U.S.-Israel operation on Iran's nuclear facilities, guys.
Wow, thanks, Jackie.
We're sitting on 4 years of deferred maintenance from Joe Biden, where in particular, when you talk about the Houthis, they were allowed for over 100 times to shoot at U.S. Ships, to shoot at commercial shipping. 4 months ago, when we sent a ship through, it was shot at 17 times. To the Houthis, this isn't a one-night thing. This will continue until you say we're done shooting at ships, we're done shooting at assets.
There was the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, talking with Marie on Sunday morning. Come on over here. We'll show you what's happening in Yemen. Here's the Red Sea over here. Shipping traffic there has been hindered for some time now. Gulf of Aden down here to the south, all right? The strikes hit numerous towns throughout the country of Yemen, primarily in the western edge, southwestern edge. Sana'a is the capital city. That was hit. In Sada, this one up here near the Saudi borders, apparently where a lot of the leadership of the Houthi rebels live today. So this is one distinction that they have from these strikes. You know, during the Biden years, they didn't go after the leadership. But under Trump this past weekend, that was one of their targets. How well they did, we do not know. We'll wait for a better readout on that. Hard to get. Yemen is one of the poorest countries in the world. Hard to get a readout what's happening there on the ground. Since November 2023 now, these are the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea, right? 250 plus. Going back to October of 2023, these are the Houthi attacks on U.S. forces, 180 attacks. We've had the U.S. Navy out there for some time, and they've had a tough job. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, now Fox News contributor. And sir, thank you for coming on today, and good morning to you. Guys, let's show them the map here. This is what happens when you don't have freedom of navigation. You have to go around the southern coast of South Africa. It adds weeks to delivery, which computes to prices, etc. And this is Michael Waltz talking about the options on the table. As you know, sir, Iran is behind this. Here's Michael Waltz.
This was an overwhelming response that actually targeted multiple Houthi leaders and took them out. And the difference here is, one, going after the Houthi leadership, and two, holding Iran responsible.
Does that mean direct military action on Iran is possible?
Well, all options are always on the table with the president, but Iran needs to hear him loud and clear.
Sir, you know that the Saudis bombed the Houthis for 7 years, and they're still battling. How do you see this now?
Well, Bill, good morning. It's great to be with you. Two important things. One, President Trump made clear that we were going to take decisive action. You talk about the activity there for the last 7 years. It sounds like President Trump is thinking about something much bigger, much deeper, much more sustained, with an outcome that actually delivers the objective, which is to stop the Houthis from disrupting travel. The second thing that is so different here, Bill, from what President Biden did for 4 years, you'll remember I designated the Houthis as a terrorist organization. Secretary Blinken came in and with a couple hours took them off the terror list. President Trump has now made clear to the Iranians, we know this is your money, these are your weapons, and we're going to hold you accountable. Where the Biden administration just refused to acknowledge that Iran had anything to do with this in a serious way. Same thing he'd done when Hamas attacked on October 7th. I think those two things give the United States and our Gulf Arab allies a real opportunity, Bill, an opportunity to stop these knucklehead tribesmen in Yemen from disrupting global travel, global sea lanes, and costing Americans lots of money and risking our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines as well.
Just one more question on this before I go to Ukraine. Waltz said Iran needs to hear him loud and clear, referring to President Trump. Last week we heard that he wrote the Iranian leadership a letter. Would this have been a part of that, do you think?
You know, Bill, I of course don't know what's in the letter, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. But if President Trump made clear not only were we going to hold them accountable for what the Houthis are doing, but what Hezbollah continues to do, what Hamas is still trying to rebuild, I'm pretty confident that there would have been a comprehensive explanation that Iran needs to stop the terrorism from their proxies, and that there'll be a real cost to the Iranian and the Iranian leadership itself if they don't change that behavior.
Okay. Let's move to Ukraine and Russia. Late last night, Air Force One came back to Washington. Some tough weather on the East Coast. I think it landed at 1 o'clock in the morning. On board Air Force One, the president was asked about talks with Putin.
I'll be speaking to President Putin on Tuesday. A lot of work's been done over.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause it here because they're switching over to Russia and Ukraine. But let's go ahead and keep on talking about what's going on with the United States and Iran and potential conflicts. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at this article right here that has come out just in the past couple of hours that says Trump's sights set on Iran after U.S. airstrikes decimate more than 30 Houthi targets. Strikes hit over 30 locations and took out dozens of Houthi military officials. Now, the article reads, U.S. airstrikes over the weekend took out Houthi drones, missiles, and air defense systems, but it remains to be seen whether they struck a lethal blow at their main target, the Iranian regime's resolve. And again, as you heard them say, Donald Trump is going to be holding Iran directly accountable for the actions of these proxy groups. Joint Staff Director of Operations Lieutenant General Alexis Gerwinich told reporters dozens of military casualties had so far been counted and that he had seen no credible indication of any civilian casualties. He added that an initial wave of strikes hit over 30 targets at multiple locations, degrading a variety of Houthi capabilities. These included terrorist training sites, unmanned aerial vehicle infrastructures, weapons manufacturing capabilities, and weapons storage facilities. Yemen's Houthi rebels claimed 53 people had lost their lives, including 5 children. Attacks began Saturday and continued into Monday today. Pentagon chief spokesperson Sean Parnell said the message in the strikes was, if you shoot at American troops, there will be consequences. Let me know, are you glad to see this approach by Donald Trump? If so, put a 47. If no, put a 46 for the last administration's approach. At the same time, he emphasized this is also not an endless offensive. This is not about regime change in the Middle East. This is about putting American interests first. But President Donald Trump had been clear that while the Houthis were the target of the attacks, Iran would be held responsible for any retaliation. And that's why we are hearing that right now. They have got their sights set on Iran. The United States is escalating with Iran, and we are hearing Iran is responding back, saying they will not be backing down. Any further attack or retaliation by the Houthis will be met with great force, and there is no guarantee that that force will stop there. Iran has played the innocent victim of rogue terrorists from which they've lost control, but they have not lost control, he wrote on Truth Social. Love Life, thank you for the $2 super chat. Everyone be prepared. A major war is coming. Yes, thank you for the $2 super chat, Love Life. And also, yes, it does feel like all of a sudden, just right now, things are erupting in the Middle East and things are escalating significantly. We're going to be getting to the attacks that are actually taking place as we speak right now. In Gaza, as the ceasefire has ended, things have fallen apart in the Middle East. But reading on with this article involving the United States and Iran, it says they are dictating every move, giving them the weapons, supplying them with money and highly sophisticated military equipment, and even so-called intelligence. Every shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon from the point forward as a shot was fired from the weapons and leadership of Iran, and Iran will be held responsible and suffer the consequences, and those consequences will be dire. Freedom, thank you for the $5 super chat. He said, we are clearly in the end times. All signs are here. All of us need to be right with our Lord and Savior. That's all that matters, Mr. Ram. Thank you for that message, Freedom. I appreciate that a ton, and those $5 super chats. Now, it says the Houthis announced last week they would ramp up attacks on the Red Sea once more, claiming they were doing so to pressure Israel to allow humanitarian aid to flow back into Gaza. The group had halted strikes in January when the Gaza ceasefire was first announced. Trump last week tried the diplomatic route with Iran, writing a letter to its supreme leader asking for engagement in nuclear talks. But Iran, enraged by Trump's stated intentions to return to a maximum pressure sanctions campaign, said it would not engage with the United States. Trump has said its strikes will continue with overwhelming lethal force until the Houthis are eliminated as a threat. But what elimination would look like, especially if the Houthis' attacks persist, was vague. Now, Parnell refused to say whether U.S. troops could be deployed to Yemen. It's very difficult, if not impossible, for us to talk about force, posture from this podium, he said. It's very important to keep the enemy guessing. Zeneb Rebua, research fellow and program manager of the Center for Peace and Security in the Middle East, explained that the U.S. strikes aim to destroy missile and launch sites used to target Red Sea shipping and disrupt supply chains that feed Iranian weaponry to the Houthis. However, the effectiveness of these operations depends on two key factors. Did they cripple Houthis' capabilities? The group has proven resilient, especially if Iran continues to funnel weapons and intelligence support, he said. Houthis responded with unsuccessful strikes on the aircraft carrier USS Harry S. Truman. Secretary of the State Marco Rubio claimed Sunday that over the past 18 months, Houthi fighters had attacked the U.S. Navy directly 174 times and had targeted commercial shipping 145 times using guided precision anti-ship weaponry. The Houthis in recent years have attacked unarmed Western ships carrying goods through the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, and the U.S. military has responded with strikes that were seemingly limited in scope, not a full-scale declaration of war, though. The attacks have led to perilous waters along a trade route that typically sees some $1 trillion in goods pass through it, as well as shipments of aid to war-torn Sudan and the Yemeni people. We are already on day 3 of the military campaign, and it has been unrelenting. This is much different than the smaller and more limited strikes during the Biden administration, said Hudson fellow Rebecca Heinrichs. Now, the days of pinprick responses where we allow that to occur is over. That's, I think, a pretty clear statement from the administration as a whole as well. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce told reporters on Monday of the renewed offensive. Iran sought to distance itself from its proxy forces. Paramilitary Revolutionary Guard General Hossein Salami said Iran plays no role in setting the national or operational policies of the groups that it allies itself with. But some restrained-minded voices don't believe the U.S. should be spending its resources to fight the Houthis, who haven't publicly attacked maritime positions since November. The people affected, I think, are more European and Chinese than American, said Ben Friedman, policy director at Defense Priorities. So it's not clear to me why the U.S. should be doing this. If the Europeans want to deal with it, fine. But I don't think that everything needs to be our responsibility, especially when they're not doing much damage to us. He's doing what should have been done under the Biden administration, said Gene Morin, former Navy captain and former advisor to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. But at the same time, we shouldn't be fooled into thinking that we can knock down an ideology with kinetic weapons. We've made the mistake time over time. Sometimes something needs to be done with Iran. Trump has proven with his relationship with Russia, he can flip the table over a weekend, change the whole conversation. So I would think that Trump would do something very decisive with Iran. He may find he doesn't have to do that with kinetic weapons. Now, Iran's uranium enrichment has breached 60%, dangerously close to the 90% enrichment needed to make a bomb. Tehran still denied it is pursuing a nuclear weapon, but experts have said there is no civilian use for 60% enriched uranium. This is exactly what I had mentioned to you before. They're saying there is no need to go that high unless you are trying to achieve 90%, which would provide a nuclear bomb. Vexily, thank you for the $5 super chat. As a superpower, we should always try to de-escalate, but if our adversaries continually re-escalate, our hands are tied. Well said, and thank you for that $5 super chat. So there you have it, you guys, and this coming as the headline reads, Trump's sights are set on Iran after the U.S. airstrikes decimate more than 30 Houthi targets. Trump warns Iran will be held responsible for the Houthi attacks coming from Yemen. The U.S. president has threatened Iran, while the Pentagon vows overwhelming lethal force against the Houthis in Yemen. And look at this coming out today as well. Iran threatens the United States with a devastating response. And let me know, do you think we are going to be entering into war with Iran here very soon as we are seeing the Middle East erupt? Iran threatens the U.S. Let's take a look at this very quickly. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or the IRGC, has warned that any attack on the country will be met with a devastating response as tensions escalate between Tehran, or Iran, and Washington, the United States. So just to clarify, We're going to be covering the ceasefire that broke tonight with Israel and Gaza and Hamas. But also, we're hearing the United States and Iran are getting into conflict directly as the U.S. is holding Iran accountable for the attacks coming from proxy groups. The statement from IRGC Commander Major General Hassim Soleimani follows a series of U.S. threats against Iran and comes in the wake of recent military action in Yemen. Newsweek has reached out to the Pentagon and Iran's foreign ministry for comments via email. Now, here's why it matters. Soleimani's warning underscores Iran's stance amid growing hostilities with the United States, particularly over Yemen and Tehran's broader regional influence. The latest exchange of threats follows a deadly U.S. airstrike in Yemen and heightened tensions over Iran's nuclear program, raising concerns about a wider conflict. So here's what to know. Soleimani's issued a stark statement saying any act of aggression against Iran would result in a tough, decisive, and devastating reaction. He also said that Tehran takes full responsibility for its actions and will overtly acknowledge them when necessary. If we attack anywhere or support anybody, we will unequivocally announce it, Soleimani said. However, he said that Iran does not dictate the policies of the Yemen Houthi movement, which he stated make their own strategic decisions. His comments came after President Donald Trump threatened Iran, warning against support for Yemen's government and militant groups. Iran's supreme leader framed the strikes on Yemen as evidence that U.S. and its allies fear the growing strength of the regional resistance. The nation of Yemen is definitely victorious. The only path is that of resistance, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei posted on his X account. He further said that Western military action reflects anxiety over shifting power dynamics, stating that which has caused the United States and its allies to panic today is the fact that the Muslim nations are standing firmly and that this resistance will prove to be effective. Wow, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Essentially, the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, is coming out and saying that the United States and its allies are afraid of the Middle East, of Iran, and their proxy groups. Do you think that is the case? If so, put yes. If no, put US in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think that the United States is afraid of the proxy groups that are attacking right now? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit the like button to help spread this out further so more people can get the latest updates. In fact, we only need 25 more likes to have 1,000 while we're live right now. Escalation in Yemen. U.S. forces carried out airstrikes on a residential area in Shahab district of Yemen's capital on March 15th, ending the lives of 31 people and injuring over 100, according to officials there. Days before, the Yemen Houthi rebels announced the reinstatement of their maritime blockade on Israeli shipping as a response to delays in humanitarian aid reaching Palestinians in Gaza. This blockade affected key waterways, including the Red Sea and the Bab al-Mandab Strait. So what are people saying? The IRGC commander, he is saying, I warn all enemies that any threat being carried out will draw a tough, decisive, and devastating reaction. This is the threat directly to the United States. President Donald Trump has warned Iran, beware, because America will hold you fully accountable and we won't be nice about it. What happens next? The IRGC chief's remarks coincide with the growing possibility of military escalation. Trump recently warned that Iran faces two choices: negotiation or military action, while reports have said Israel may be planning strikes on Iranian nuclear sites this year. So, wow, 2025, you just saw that. While reports have said Israel may be planning strikes on Iranian nuclear sites this year in 2025, we may be seeing massive war breaking out here with the United States and Israel against Iran. Tehran has dismissed any negotiations under pressure. So, wow, there you have it. Trump says Iran will suffer dire consequences for any more Houthi attacks. Now, this comes as in the past couple of hours as well. Today, March 17, 2025, we're hearing the ceasefire is over. Ceasefire over Israel strikes Gaza after Hamas refused to release hostages, officials have said. Now, let's take a look at some video footage so that way you can see it for yourself. As I mentioned, this is coming out in just the past couple of hours. Breaking news. Let's go ahead and take a look.
Monologue in a minute, but first, joining us now with the very latest out of the Middle East, our own Trey Yangst. Trey, a lot of activity tonight.
Yeah, Sean, good evening. Breaking news tonight out of the Middle East. Israeli fighter jets are currently striking the Gaza Strip. The ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is over. The Prime Minister's office releasing a statement early this morning saying from now on, Israel will operate against Hamas with increasing military force. The operational plan was presented late last week by the IDF and approved by the political echelon. Reports from inside Gaza indicate there are extensive Israeli strikes taking place across the Strip in major population centers like Gaza City and the southern city of Rafah. As this story progresses, we will continue to find out more information and determine whether or not Israeli ground forces are involved. But remember, this comes after a nearly 2-month ceasefire that went into effect in mid-January and saw dozens of living hostages freed from Hamas captivity. President Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, has been working overtime in the region, ferrying messages back and forth, not only between Tel Aviv and Washington, but also in cities like Doha and Cairo. The Trump team was working late into this week trying to determine if they could get a last-minute deal together between Israel and Hamas. There was a plan presented that would see 11 living hostages freed from Gaza, exchanged for Palestinian prisoners, but Hamas was simply not willing to accept that agreement. And clearly tonight, the Israelis have gone back to war against this organization inside Gaza. Again, the latest information that we have, Israeli fighter jets are flying over the Strip, striking Hamas targets inside Gaza at this hour. And Israel's Home Front Command, responsible for communicating messages of emergency to the civilian population here in Israel, says that all schools near to the Gaza border have been closed tomorrow as they are warning the civilian population about the possibility of Hamas and Islamic Jihad rocket fire coming from Gaza. Sean?
And Trey, this on the heels of President Trump's strike against the Houthi rebels and his warning and admonition to Iran on top of the warning that he gave Hamas. They had a very limited time to turn the hostages over. They didn't do it, and here we are. I expect this will get worse before it gets better.
There you have it, you guys. They said they expect this is going to get worse before it gets any better, and that is that we have now seen the ceasefire agreement fall apart. Israel is currently attacking Hamas, and this comes, as you heard, on the heels of Donald Trump warning the Houthis in Yemen, warning Iran directly, and we're hearing things are escalating. So he said this is likely going to be increasing, and we are hearing the United States is preparing for potential war, all-out war with Iran. Let's go ahead and take a look at some more updates coming from various news outlets so that way you can see it for yourself.
We have breaking news at this hour. The Israeli military says they are currently conducting extensive strikes in Gaza. The Israeli Defense Forces and Israeli Securities Agency say they are targeting terror targets belonging to Hamas. The strikes throw into doubt the fragile ceasefire that is held for nearly 2 months. The attacks come after President Trump issued what he called a last warning to Hamas last week to release all the remaining hostages being held in Gaza. The president said the U.S. was giving its full support to Israel to, quote, finish the job if the hostages were not freed. And just a short while ago, President Netanyahu said Israel will increase its use of force against Hamas going forward, accusing Hamas of repeatedly refusing to release the hostages and rejecting mediation offers. Here to discuss how this ceasefire agreement could fall apart and Israel's next steps is ABC News correspondent Matt Gutman, who joins us by phone right now. Matt, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu just told the public why the ceasefire agreement broke down. Can you share that with us?
Got safety protocols? Granger has the safety pros to call.
He basically said that Hamas, Stephanie, did not accept this Witkoff proposal. They've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now. It seems that they got close at some point. It also seems that the U.S. had been engaged in direct talks with Hamas for the first time separately from Israel. It's the first time that any U.S. administration had ever reached out and spoke directly to Hamas. Those apparently also broke down. And so at this point, the Israeli Prime Minister alerting the military, but also obviously the public, that the ceasefire has broken down. In fact, I spoke to a military official about 30 seconds before we got on air, who said that we've been in negotiations with Hamas. That wasn't working. The question now, Stephanie, is how extensive is this attack going to be? Is this just like a shot across the bow? Is this airstrikes that we're going to see tonight going into tomorrow? Or are we going to see tanks roll across the border into Gaza again, and at what strength? So I just got back from Israel on Saturday night, and multiple military sources there had been talking about another massive invasion of the Gaza Strip to rid Gaza of Hamas once and for all. And they said, instead of sort of the whack-a-mole that Israel had been playing with Hamas, where it would strike one area and then Hamas would pop up somewhere else, because Israel was engaged in multiple fronts at one time, fighting in Gaza, but also in Lebanon. This time they're going to focus all the forces inside Gaza at once and try to truly decimate the terrorist organization. However, obviously they've proven very elusive, and we've seen in these ceremonies that Hamas has come out in these crisp uniforms, AK-47s oiled up. They have new vehicles that appear unblemished from 18 months of war. So the question is, how extensive this is this, and how long does it last? At this point, we simply don't know. But this is certainly the biggest military operation that we've seen in 2 months in the Gaza Strip.
And Matt, those are certainly some really strong and solid questions. How extensive will these strikes be? We know that the IDF says they are conducting extensive strikes right now on Gaza as we speak. But what are their goals militarily speaking?
It sounds very easy to say, Stephanie, and we've heard this from Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu so many times, right? It's to destroy Hamas. The question is, what does that look like? And the biggest question that Israelis are asking his public, well, what happens to the hostages? You fought this war to repatriate the hostages. You entered those negotiations to repatriate those hostages, but where are they? So there are 59 hostages, living and dead. A very senior source told me that Israel believes at this point that there are only 21 living hostages. And it seems that Israel may be willing to roll the dice here. Unclear how far they're willing to go and risk the lives of the remaining hostages in order to try to hit areas that they hadn't hit before, like the center of Gaza, which is largely still intact because that's where it was believed that the Israeli hostages were being held. But remember, they're American hostages, they're Argentine hostages from various nations who have dual Israeli and other citizenship. So it's very complicated, and many Israeli rank-and-file folks are just wondering, well, what's going to happen? Are these other people going to get killed? That's a very major fear, and that's going to be very hard for Netanyahu to play. He's got a lot of pressure coming from his base to keep fighting, but a lot of the rest of Israel says, no, we need to get those hostages home any way we can, Stephanie.
Absolutely. And the families of those 59 hostages also awaiting news and wanting to see their loved ones. Matt, thank you so much for your time. We want to turn now to retired General Doug Lute, a former U.S. ambassador to NATO. Sir, thanks so much for joining us. Days ago, President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, proposed a new agreement that would last until April 20th, which detailed the release of these hostages. What could these latest strikes possibly mean for the fate of those hostages? I know Matt just touched on it a few moments ago, but what could this mean for those individuals, dead or alive?
Well, I think what we've seen, if these reports are right, and if the early reports that Israel is going to resume full-scale military operations prove accurate, it proves that these sorts of ceasefire deals, like this one, which is now 2 months old, are exceptionally fragile. And they're fragile because neither party, in this case, neither the Israelis nor Hamas, have any reason to trust one another. So there's no trust, and the slightest wrinkle in the pattern, the phased approach to the ceasefire, the slightest wrinkle, the slightest dismissal can lead to a renewed conflict. And I think that may be what we're seeing. We should remember that this phase one of the ceasefire was supposed to have been completed 2 weeks ago on March 1st. So we may see a return to full-scale violence. And of course, that spells a disaster for the remaining hostages and for the prospect that eventually a peace could be brought to bear on this conflict.
And Israelis have always wanted eradication of Hamas, but they're still in Gaza. Could this war continue until Hamas is completely out of the picture?
Well, I think that what we're coming to grips with is that the complete destruction of Hamas is likely beyond the military capability of the state of Israel. Unless Israel is going to fully occupy Gaza indefinitely and rule it, it is almost impossible to eradicate completely Hamas. And we've seen reminders of this. As your report indicated just a few minutes ago, we've seen reminder that Hamas persists. Hamas has survived, and Hamas has made a very public display of this over the last several weeks as hostages have been step by step released and so forth. There have been Hamas fighters there brandishing weapons and so forth, and demonstrating to Israel, but also to the people of Gaza, that Hamas is not destroyed. So this is really the rub of the problem.
And we know that Prime Minister Netanyahu says that for now they will increase, of course, these forces against Hamas because Hamas has not released the remaining hostages and refused mediation offers. Do you see any path forward for mediation at this point to ensure that a ceasefire holds?
Well, look, mediation with the good offices of nearby states, so Qatar and Egypt, with the U.S. participating, got us to phase one and brought us the promise, or at least the prospect that we could go from phase one to phase two and eventually phase three, a long-lasting peaceful arrangement in post-war Gaza. But again, I think if the ceasefire breaks down, it is a vivid reminder of just how delicate these ceasefires are, and not only the ceasefire here, but the ceasefire that might be in the works elsewhere, for example, in Ukraine.
Retired General Doug Lute, a former U.S. ambassador to NATO. Thank you so much, Doug, and thanks to Matt Gutman for...
There you have it, you guys. So more information. Let's go ahead and take a look at another one, as these have just been coming out in the past hour or so. Here's one from Live Now with Fox, so you can see it for yourself.
One here to Live Now from Fox, coming back with some breaking news that we want to bring to you in the Israel-Gaza war right now. This is major, as the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is over, as Israeli fighter jets began striking the Gaza Strip after Hamas refused repeated hostage deal offers. Officials are saying the Israel Defense Forces, or IDF, began striking Hamas terrorist targets across Gaza in order to achieve the war objectives set by the political leadership, including the release of all of our hostages, both the living and the fallen. That is from the IDF. They continue to go on saying the decision comes after Hamas repeatedly refused to release our hostages and rejected all proposals presented by President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, as well as the mediators. The letter also stated Israel will intensify its military actions against Hamas moving forward, authorities have said. Under the direction of the political echelon, the IDF are widely attacking terrorist targets of the Hamas terrorist organization throughout the Gaza Strip. More details below. The IDF saying that Israel's internal security service pointing this out in a joint statement, saying that they are going to continue to put maximum pressure on Hamas. So again, the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is over. Trey Yingst putting this out just moments ago. Great Fox News international reporter saying Israeli jets are now striking Gaza. They are over Gaza as well. Here's a live look right now at Gaza. We'll be keeping an eye on this shot here for you, as we'll be waiting to get more details with these airstrikes. Of course, if we see any movement there from the jets in the sky, if we see any explosions, we'll try to get that video for you as fast as we can. But again, this major breaking news happening as the ceasefire is now put on hold, as Israeli jets are now striking key targets in Gaza trying to put the maximum pressure on Hamas as they try to get, as they said, both the living and the dead hostages back into their arms here for Israel. So we will continue to follow the very latest here for you on Live Now from Fox as we continue to develop this major breaking story. We'll see if President Trump has any remarks on his Truth Social accounts coming up later this evening, and we'll be sure to pass that along to.
There you have it, you guys. So things are escalating significantly today, March 17th, 2025. We're hearing that the United States issuing threats to Iran, preparing for potential escalation, war. We're hearing Israel has begun attacking Gaza and Hamas yet again, and this time they're saying they're not going to be playing whack-a-mole. They are going to wipe them out or rid this proxy group of the area. And also we're hearing that things are escalating with the Houthis in Yemen, the United States attacking Yemen, and now warning Iran, saying we will hold you directly accountable because this is your proxy group. Iran claiming we're not responsible for the acts of the Houthi rebels in Yemen. Although they are a funded proxy group, we do not make the decisions for them. They make their own decisions. The United States saying, too bad, we hold you accountable for allowing them to do this. We're hearing things are erupting in the Middle East. We're going to be seeing where we go from here. And again, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think that we're going to be going to war, the United States with Iran and the Middle East? If so, put yes. If no, put no. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And also, if you haven't done so yet, please take a second, hit that like button for me. Subscribe to stay up to date. It's totally free. I'll keep you up to speed on everything. I cite all the sources, put it on the screen. All these articles I've referenced are going to be linked in the description below. You'll be able to see that they've all come out in the past couple of hours today, March 17th. And I will play any video footage that comes out so you can see it for yourself. But that is the latest, you guys. Please pray for our world, pray for our nation, pray for the Middle East. And I will keep you up to speed on everything and let you know whatever unfolds, exactly what is taking place. So that is the latest. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.